For you, did you go live already? Yes. Do you want to make this?
If it's further away?
Yeah, I'm saying for the screen, do you still need a split like this? Or do you just want it like this?
Is this showing? So I'm just. Huh? What time is it? Are we live?
It's about
5:58. That's Tokes, I think. Tokuma, are you logged in or no? Yeah, it should be live on both. Can you guys go check and see if and it's actually recording so they can hear everything we're saying. Hi guys, we're just about to start. Huh? I'm not sure what I did. But are people going to be, are you in? Okay. Oh, good. I can just turn it down. Okay.
Where did you send the link?
You have to go onto my Facebook or my YouTube channel, Dr. Tade Talks.
Is it on your YouTube?
It's on my YouTube as well. If you can check to make sure it's streaming.
You're going to be streaming on YouTube?
As well. It's not?
Yeah, I'm just checking.
As well. Oh my God. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. I hope everyone is doing well today. Okay. I have my crew here helping me. I just want to say quick shout out to my beautiful sons, Ayodeji, Ayokito, for helping me, for Ayoyika as well. Temitayo is also here. Tokumba. Thank you, everyone. You can see my Kiki is trying to get in the Oh wow, this is so exciting. I'm so glad to be here. Finally, Dr. Tade Talks is back on the air. So it's season 2 of Dr. Tade Talks, and I am so excited. First of all, I want to thank everyone. I want to say a big thank you to everyone that has supported Dr. Tade Talks. I think we turned we turned 1 last year. September was when we launched. So we're moving on, and God is doing great things in our lives, and we just thank God. Well, my hope is that it is going to be more than just talks, and that these talks will be very informative, and they will create dialogue for us to have with our family and friends. And when you talk about dialogue that will do away with mental health stigma. So we want to, stop the stigma that is mental illness, because mental health is not, is not a stigma. It's mental illness that is a stigma. But we do want to, continue that dialogue that is going to put an end to the stigma of mental illness. Okay. So from the bottom of my heart, I just want to say thank you to you all for joining me in promoting mental health awareness. I'm live this evening and I'm seated at my dining table. So welcome to my dining room. How do you guys like it? As most of you know, many families and many family discussions are usually held at the dining room table. In particular, my family, we love to gather at the dining table. My sons, when they talk about their favorite times, they talk about, when we gather at the dining table to have meals together. It's not very often that we do it, but I hope that even after today, that families will begin to gather around the dining table and have healthy discussions, healthy relationships, developing, very functional dynamics within the family. So like I said, meal times are usually at the dining table for a lot of families. But this season, we're going to be having those hard to have discussions about our families, relationships, and how it affects our mental health. Today, I want to discuss what makes a healthy family, which is also referred to as a functional family. And I'm sure some of you are asking, what does that mean, a functional family or a healthy family? What does it look like? In a lot of our cultures, we don't even know what that looks like. We have ways, or how do I say, customs that have been passed down from generation to generation, especially from, for those of us who are from the African diaspora. We have customs that have been passed down from generation to generation, things that we do with our children, things we say to them, how we relate to our children. And for some of us, that's the way we were raised, and we try to raise our children that way. But for those of us who found ourselves in the diaspora, we're realizing that, oh my goodness, this is not, this was probably not the best way how my parents raised me, or what worked for my mom raising me is really not working for me raising my sons. Can you imagine? My mom had all girls, I have all boys. So that dynamic right there is already different. And then you have, someone like me and a lot of my people from my community who were raised in Nigeria. And then we're all here now raising our children in the UK, in Canada, in the US. And it's like, wow, what is going on? Anyway, so like I was saying, what our definition, how do we define a healthy family? What is your definition of a healthy family? So I want this to be as interactive as possible. So if you would kind of put your chats, I hope you can see the chat. I can't see anything, but Talks, my able producer, is going to be helping me. She'll be sending me those questions, and we'll figure this out. Okay. So like I said, today I want to discuss what makes a healthy family, and also what is referred to as a functional family. And then we'll also look at a dysfunctional family, right? So I want us to define the traits of a healthy functioning family and the traits of a dysfunctional family. There's a definition from the Michigan State University. There was an article from the Michigan State University, and it can actually help us better understand what a functional family looks like. So, according to that article, researchers have identified 6 indicators of a functional family. 6 indicators, and I give examples of what that would look like, within our community, because Dr. Tade talks really about our community, about how how we're raising our families, how we're relating to one another, the dynamics within those families. And just like I said before, how do we define, healthy families? How are we defining functionality in our families, especially for those of us that come from the African diaspora? What we think is healthy is not healthy, okay? I just want to dispel that myth right now. The way you're raising your kids, yes, they grow up to be doctors, lawyers, and all that stuff, but a lot of us, a lot of our kids, a lot of people are, they grow up having anxiety, depression, and just a whole lot of low self-esteem. Okay, so Anyway, so the first one from the Michigan State article that we found, it talks about a healthy family practices appreciation and affection. So when we talk about appreciation, for example, your spouse does something, for you, something nice, you show appreciation. Always be willing to say thank you. Always be ready to say, quick to say please. Always be quick to say sorry. Your husband brings you roses. Oh, thank you, honey. Thank you. Not like, not like some of us will do and say, oh yeah, whatever. Well, I don't like flowers. What's all this? Is that all you could get me? The way some of us do. Is that all you can get me? Flowers? What am I going to do with flowers? You couldn't get me, what do you call it? Like a Gucci watch or something. Let's be appreciative. That's what I'm trying to say. And also let's teach our children, to be appreciative of those things that we've done for them, and to be appreciative of one another, of their siblings. Children should be able to, appreciate their siblings and be kind to one another. Another thing that I think couples should do, and also based on this article, is also to show, and I know some of you will be like, no. It's very important that we show affection, healthy displays of affection as an example to our children. Very, very important. So what am I saying? You come back from work, you give your wife a hug, you give your husband a kiss on the lip, a quick kiss, not X-rated kisses, but just showing some kind of affection to your spouse. That goes a long way. When our children see us displaying affection to one another, it helps them be more confident. It also teaches them to have healthy relationships, it shows them what a healthy relationship really looks like. So, like I said, very important. Make sure you are showing good examples, healthy examples to your children within the home. And that's still under the, talking about appreciation and affection. And I know that some of you, my country people, like I would call it, it's like, I can't be holding my wife in public. I cannot be kissing my husband in public. Okay, if you can, just hold hands. Okay, hold hands. Let your children see that you actually love each other, you enjoy each other's company, you appreciate each other, and that this is how healthy, a healthy marriage should be. So that's that. And another thing is, don't say negative things about your spouse to your children. We shouldn't say negative things about our spouse, period, right? Because our spouses are perfect, right? But then don't say negative things to about your spouse to your children. So that's another way of, showing unhealthy relationships. Don't argue in front of them. Let children be children. Let them grow up in a loving environment. Be very, very intentional about creating a loving environment for your children. Make sure that you're not, backbiting your spouse, undermining your spouse in front of them, trying to one up him or her, so that there's trying to make them take sides with you when something happens. You and your spouse should be on the same page, right? You should be on the same page, and the children should know that. Also, when we do that, sometimes when we're not on the same page with our spouses, our children can play us against one another. So you have to be mindful of some of those actions. So if you're the kind of person that likes to talk about your spouse, to your children, the children will cash in on that, and they will come and start to play both of you against one another. So that's that was the first one. If you have any questions or any inputs, willing to, we can just talk about it. If you have any questions, like I said, put it in the chat and we can address that. So the second thing that shows a healthy relationship is being committed to a relationship. So you have a husband, a wife, you have children in a family, you have uncles, aunties that live with you, you have cousins, you have, especially for us in the diaspora, from Africa especially, we have huge extended families sometimes that live with us. So it's important that we're committed to one another. we show commitment. Let your children see an example of what loyalty means within a marriage. For our African men, no side chick, no adultery. For women too, no side, I don't know what you call, what women call theirs, but no side hustles, no side, how do you call it, men or whatever. And, and I'm talking from experience right here. When you have a marriage, and then your children actually know your girlfriend, I guess they call it side chick, right? Your children know your girlfriend, that is a big no-no. Or your children know your boyfriend. Like, seriously, what is that? Somebody sneaking into the house at night, when your husband is away on a trip and things like that. Some uncle is coming to sleep with you. Really, that's a big no-no. So you have to be committed to your, to your relationship. You have to be committed to your marriage. Like I said, let your children see an example of loyalty within a marriage. Family first all the time, your nuclear family first, and then extended family. I know we always have extended family around us, and there's nothing wrong with that, but your nuclear family should come first. Your wife, your children, your husband, your children, family is number one. Also, make sure you're making another way to be committed to, a family relationship, a healthy family. Healthy families make decisions together. You make decisions together. You involve your children in age-appropriate decisions, whether they're 2-3 years old. Simple thing like, we want to go on vacation. You can have their input. Where do you guys want to go? It's not, oh, where mommy and daddy want to go every time, and then you just drag the kids along and they have to just go with you. In our own culture, in those days, it's whatever mom and dad say, that's what goes. They don't even ask you if you want to, take a vacation, or if you want to go anywhere. They just like, kids, get ready, we're going, we're doing this, and that is it. But these days, we ask our children, we talk to them, we involve them in decisions, that because some of these decisions actually affect their lives as well. You want to move, you want to buy a new house. Ask your children, we're going to move from the north side to the south side, or we're going to move from, Lekki to Ikoyi. Do you guys want to move? Do you guys want to, we want to move from the mainland to the island? Ask them. Because when you uproot your children, you know what happens? You're taking them away from their friends. You're taking them away from the life that they know. So even if you're still going to go on with that decision, it's good to even involve them, talk to them about it, discuss it with them, and that is a way of building a healthy family relationship. The third one is positive communication. Positive communication, very, very important. Important with, spouses, husbands and wives, important with parents and children. And I want to dwell on this a little bit because, it's a huge thing, especially in African households. It's very important that we're open, with each other. It's very important that we're honest with each other. No hiding of things. Oh, I don't want the kids to know. If mom or somebody is ill, let them know somebody's ill. Let them know how to handle it. Help them to, to handle things like that instead of lying to them. Honesty, very important. Spouses especially. So you went and built a big mansion in the village and your wife doesn't know anything about it, or your wife, you're sponsoring some of your siblings to school and your husband doesn't know about it. Things like that are what causes dysfunction within the family. It causes rift within the family. You should be able to discuss any situation with your spouse. And then for our children also, when our children, simple things like you're sleeping and you tell the kids, anybody that knocks on the door, tell them I'm not at home. Why would you encourage your children to lie? Let's not do that. That is very, very dysfunctional when you're already teaching and then you're wondering why then the kid is lying about, sneaking out of school or cutting school. Another point is active listening. Active listening is very, very important. With spouses, you have to listen to each other, hear each other out. Like I said, you have to, that would limit arguing. Always hear what the other person is saying. I always make fun about my husband and I. When I talk to him, sometimes he just keeps quiet and he's not saying anything. He doesn't respond. And I'm like, are you even hearing me? I'm talking to you. But women, we can talk like 100 miles an hour. Men are more, they like to process things. So one day my husband said to me, he said, oh, I heard everything you're saying. He says, but I'm processing it. So men, yes, we know you're processing it, but when you're processing it, let us know that's what you're doing, as opposed to just, keeping quiet and not even responding. I mean, that's a big no-no. So we have to learn how to communicate positively, with one another, practice active listening. And if your spouse is saying something to you, let them know, sweetheart, I hear you, but is it okay if I just process it for, maybe a day or two, and I'll get back to you with an answer. And believe me, if you do that, that your spouse will be very appreciative that at least you heard, and that you're even going to take the time to, think about what, they were talking to you about. And then with our children, oh my goodness, through listening, we get to know our children better. We have to learn to listen to our children. Remember, when we were younger, they would say children should be seen and not heard. Be seen and not heard. In fact, when your parents come in and they're in the living room, you better not be there sitting there with them. But these days, you come into the living room, your kids are seated, and you're like, can you guys move and let me even sit down? So it's kind of, the dynamics have changed right now. But then there are upsides to the fact that our children feel more comfortable with us. But even as they feel more comfortable with us, based on how we're raising them, it's very important that we're hearing them. It's very important that we listen to them. Like I said, we get to know them better. We know what's going on with them. A lot of our kids are being bullied in school. A lot of them go through so much in school. They go through in school, they tell them, people make fun of them. Oh, you have an accent. Oh, your skin color is so dark. Your hair is this. They get called all kinds of names. And then they come home, and we as parents, we start yelling and screaming at them, because that's what we do. Because we want them to, you didn't wash the dishes, you didn't make your bed, you didn't take out the trash. We make such a big deal, out of all of that. And these kids have just been taken through the ringer in school. And then they come home, and it's, match two all over again, with mom and dad always just, on their case. And I'm not saying I'm not saying don't raise your kids, discipline them and make sure they do the right things, but let's also be mindful. Let's be careful. When they get back from school, you want to know, how was your day? What happened in school? Ask them specific questions. The first thing out of our mouths should not be, you left the dishes in the pot in the kitchen and you didn't wash them, and then you just continue on, and the child has homework and you make them do all these chores. Yes, they should do chores, but then let's also draw a balance and be mindful, and also be very careful to find out about their emotional well-being. And the only way we can do that is by allowing them to talk to us, allowing them to feel free to come to us anytime when they have issues going on with them. But some of our kids are they're even scared of us, because the average Nigerian mother, we like to shout. We just shout, to be screaming and yelling. It's like, why are you shouting? Sometimes I say after I've finished screaming, I say to myself, why are you shouting? Okay, you shouted, now what has come of it? So sometimes you just really need to calm down. Like they say, we need to be calming down. All right. And many African children, even now, when I talk to a lot of kids, they complain that their parents don't listen to them. Like I said, some of them are struggling in school. They are being bullied, they're being discriminated against, and then, like I said, when they come home, we're yelling at them. Nowadays, more and more of our children, and it's not, it's like it's a general phenomenon now, but those are things that we thought were not very common amongst children that are raised in African homes. A lot of the children now are having depression and anxiety. So we need to be able to listen more. We need to be able to catch those things and know exactly what is going on and where those issues are coming from. So it's very important that we listen to our children. Like I said, allow them to talk. Don't let them be scared of us. Don't shut them down when they're trying to talk to you. Don't dismiss them, because we tend to do that a lot. You're on the phone with Auntie Talks, and then your child comes and is trying to tell you something, maybe about homework or about school, and like, can't you see I'm on the phone? Why? Sometimes you may just want to tell the person on the phone and say, hey, Tokes, could you just hold on a second? Let me, Yinka is trying to talk to me. And then you say, hey, what's going on? Listen to the child, and then you can get back to your conversation. It's you don't have to continue that conversation, especially when a child is trying to get your attention. So I know that's kind of different from in those days when our parents would tell us, you never interrupt me when I'm talking to people. You don't interrupt me. If the child has something to tell you at the time that is really important and you dismiss them, you may not get the opportunity again. So let's be careful. I know we want to raise them, want to discipline them, but let's also be careful about how we are preferring discipline on our kids. Let me talk about spouses. I know we talked a bit about it, but then spouses, women, like I said, we're talkers, but we need to avoid nagging. Like I said earlier, when your husband is quiet and is thinking about it, just calm down and let him process it. Okay. Like I said, men, let your wives know that you're processing. Don't just ignore her. And another way that we can build healthy families is also by helping each other develop strong coping skills, which is like I said earlier, amicably resolving major issues, not fighting, not being dismissive, not stonewalling. Families go through all kinds of things. People go through trials. Those are times when families should bind together and be, stronger. But then when you're blaming one another and accusing one another, that's not, we a lot of African families are praying families. You can come together, pray together as a family, bring your children into it, teach them that whenever troubles come, prayer can actually, answer their solve their problems. So it's very, instead of just shouting and yelling and fighting, pointing fingers and all whatnot, it's very important that we teach our family members how to cope in times of trials. And the way we cope is praying together. It says a family that prays together stays together. And that brings me to the next one, which is healthy spiritual well-being. Like I said, praying together, doing having devotional family time with your children, very, very, very important. I remember when my kids were younger, before they went off to boarding school, every morning we would, gather together like 6 a.m. Everybody would do devotion together. And, they're all grown now, some of them are out of the house, but we used to have so much fun, and we used to miss them. I still miss those times, and even they also talk about it. But I see that they also still do their personal devotions because we have instilled that in them. So it's very important that you do family devotions with your children or pray together with your children. Spending family time, very, very important. Just hanging out together. You don't have to spend any money. Like we in our house, we do like once a week. We just gather together in the basement, the family room, and we'll just sit down and talk to one another. Everybody will share how was your week been, what's been going on with you, and they talk about what's going on with them, and we learn things that's going on with our kids. I learn things that's going on with my husband, maybe on his, with his business, and he learns things that I may have been struggling with. Even the children know, like, oh wow, mom, I didn't know you were going through that, and it kind of binds the family, together. So it's important that you spend time together. It doesn't have to involve spending money. Like I said, you can always have family time where you just sit down and if you're not watching a movie, go out and watch a movie. But when you're at home, like actually honing down on knowing more about each other. So that doesn't involve, anything else. It's just all of you there talking to one another. You allow everybody to go around and share. It's very, very powerful. Very powerful. And of course, family vacations, making time for one another, going on vacation together and just having fun together, playing cards, Ludo games, all those, card games that we do, charades. You can just be in the family room and just have fun together as a family. And then another indicator, based on what I have seen, in our community, is also showing respect, just being respectful, of one another, being respectful of other people. Be careful how you talk about other people, especially in front of your children, because we raise them, then we're raising them to be condescending or disrespectful. So avoid being condescending, avoid being disrespectful to other members of your family, because, especially your spouses, and then extended family members. So you have extended family members, maybe that are living with you or maybe that are visiting. You have to be very, very respectful and mindful of how we treat people, so because that kind of teaches your children how to behave, when they get older. Of course, a dysfunctional family, is the opposite of these areas. What is a dysfunctional family? And I think as I've been talking, I've actually been going back and forth, so what a dysfunctional family is and what a functional family is. However, to get a better understanding, let us define what dysfunction means. According to the American Psychological Association, a dysfunctional family is defined as when relationships or communication is impaired and members are unable to be close and have self-expression. So, I've talked about, being dismissive, shutting your children down. They should be seen and not heard. Members of a dysfunctional family, they kind of develop symptomatic behaviors, and often one individual in the family presents as the identified patient. So when there is a dysfunction in the family, when there's some kind of, discord all the time, there's fighting, you will see that there will be somebody in the family, either it's the wife, the husband, or one of the children, that would actually develop some kind of anxiety or depression. If you just watch closely, being self-aware is very, very important, that your dysfunction can actually be symptomatic, in somebody's behavior. So as a family, we need to be mindful to make sure that we're raising healthy families, we're raising healthy children. Our spouses are healthy emotionally. I know we've talked about domestic violence in the past, but it's very, very important that we are very mindful of how we treat our spouses, how we talk to our spouses, how we talk to our children. Abusive languages, insults, when I was talking initially, I was saying that some of these things we were raised with it. My grandmother in those days, when you go and visit her, as soon as you get there, she just starts raining abuses on you, and that was her terms of endearment, according to her. So for someone like me, I thought that was even normal. When but one of my sisters, she didn't really grow up with us, and when she first met my grandmom, she would just cry and cry. Oh, Mama said this about my head. Mama would just say, oh, look at her head like a coconut or something like that, and then she would cry and she would feel so bad. But some of us, because we grew up like that, we're raised like that, we'll be like, Mama, I know Mama loves me. Mama is not, she's not saying that to be mean. But then it's very important that we, strike a balance with some of those, abuses, some of those things that and especially for those of us who are Christians, some of these things are not biblical. Let's stop just using guile words and just making comments about people or even about ourselves and, raining curses on ourselves. Let's be mindful of how we use words in our lives, because we have learned as we have grown up that words are very powerful and words actually do follow you. So one of the examples of a dysfunctional family, according to the APA, which is American Psychological Association, they talk about coalition or an alliance of two or more individuals or groups. You kind of form a coalition, within the family, and you just to gain power and influence. So you have maybe the mom and the one of the children, they kind of form like a very strong bond, and then they kind of oppress or become adversarial basically towards either the dad for whatever reason. And so some of those attitudes are very, very dysfunctional. When you're forming coalitions, you're forming cliques, even within the family unit. I know that that can be very common in, especially polygamous families, you know, where there's kind of little cliques and people get, you know, bullied and things like that. But thank God we're moving away from those things. But I know I'm talking to some people, you know, also back home in Nigeria, and where polygamy is still very, very rampant in some families. So let's just be mindful of those coalitions that we form to kind of oppress other people and you know, gaining influence and making other people uncomfortable. Another dysfunction is what I would call detouring. Detouring specifically, it talks to the degree also where an alliance against, you know, where the parents form an alliance, you know, maybe against the child in a way that, you know, makes the child be very distant from them. So I know that mom and dad, you guys should be, you know, very close in your relationship, but don't make your children feel like outsiders, you know, within, you know, within the family units. Let them know that they are a part of the family. Let them know that they are valued, their opinions are valued. So let's make sure that we're not practicing, you know, detouring within the family unit. Let's see here. I think the last one is triangulation. In family therapy, there's something we call triangulation, and it's a situation in which, you know, two members of a family would, you know, kind of just like I was talking about detouring. So we have members of family where you're having a fight, and then you now try to draw somebody to side with you against the other person. It's, you know, it happens a lot in families, so we have to be mindful of that. And especially for those of us who are going through separation or divorce, please do not bring your children into it. Don't let your children be caught in the middle of your mess. It is not fair. It gives it does not do a good thing to a child's psyche as they grow up. You know, they may have a very, very negative view of marriage, and, you know, so I'm just appealing to us, for those of us who are going through some kind of, you know, separation, divorce, make sure you leave your children out of it. You know, yes, you can talk to them, let them know what's going on, but let that be that. All the dirty stuff, keep it out of their ears. Just leave the children and let them grow up to be healthy adults. So let's take a little quiz. I don't know if we have any questions, Stokes, but let's take a little quiz. This is just a Dr. Tade Talks quiz. It's not a clinical test. And as I read these questions, I want you to, you know, think about it and give your honest answers. And it's just something just to be on a lighter mood. I think we're almost done. Tokumbo, can you still hear me? Okay, I think she's off the line. Oh, you can hear me. Okay, good. Okay. Oh, good. Let's see. I have the phone, but I don't. Where did you send the comments to? Oh, let's see here. Okay, can you read the comment, Talks? Because I can't seem to. Yes. Not having favorites amongst your children. Every child should be treated equal, you know. And I would say something about that, especially when you have a child that has special needs within the family. It's very, very easy to give that child preferential treatment, thinking that we are, you know, making them comfortable. In doing that, we tend to ignore the other kids. So we have to be careful. You know, we have to be very careful when we have children with special needs, because they do demand a lot. But let's also strike a balance and make sure that we're not, you know, ignoring the other children. I know that I was guilty of that when I was, raising my son. I have 3 sons. My middle child has autism, and it was like, the whole world revolved around this one child. And it took me a while to realize that, these other children also need me. So it's very, very important that we don't play favorites. Sometimes we don't do it intentionally, but we have to be mindful of it. Okay. Okay, so let's, while Tokunbo is reading the other question, let me, if there's any other comments, let me read the first quiz. It says, Mr. and Mrs. Newlywed are 4 months into the marriage, and my newlywed makes an expensive, and Mr. Newlywed makes an expensive purchase of $30,000 of their wedding gift money without discussing it with his wife. They had initially agreed to use it as a down payment on a home. However, Mr. Newlywed felt he needed to seize the opportunity of a Black Friday deal for a discounted, still expensive entertainment center for his man cave for the upcoming Super Bowl. I don't know if you guys got that, story. So we have a couple. Tokunbo, can you please turn that down? It's kind of distracting. Anyway, so like I said, we have this newlyweds. They just got married, and they got a wedding gift, some money. Like in our culture, people give us a lot of money when you're celebrating anything. You get a lot of money, especially weddings, right? So they got some money, and then the husband decides to take the money and go and splurge on Black Friday on some entertainment system for his, man cave. So what should Mrs. Newlywed do? And this one says, curse his mother and his ancestors and tell him he lacks home training. Sit him down and tell him how irresponsible and senseless he is. Remind him what you both agree. Remind him that you both agree to use the money for, but then do you talk to him in a non-confrontational manner, and the importance of a house purchase? Do you just tell him, hey honey, remember we said we wanted to use this money for such and such? Or do you call his parents to report him, or his favorite uncle? So I don't know what your thoughts are. Tell if you guys want to answer that. How would you answer that that little vignette that I just gave you? Let's see. Any takers for that? Okay, so that's one. Let's look at the second one. Actually, the right answer to that is C. Remind him what you both agreed to use the money for in a non-confrontational manner, and the importance of a house purchase. So yes, I know that it could be very infuriating if your husband takes a whole $30,000 and goes and buys himself an entertainment center when you're supposed to buy, a house. But then a functional family, a healthy family, the way you handle that is by talking about it. Approach your spouse in a non-confrontational manner and remind him gently. Of course, the money it's been spent, but then if you're able to return the entertainment center, great. If not, I think you will just have to handle it in a very amicable and non-confrontational way. Okay. Sorry, let me need to charge my computer. Okay, go ahead, Tokes. I don't know if they can hear you. Hey. I like that. Daily Motion said Mrs. Newlywed should run away. Where is she running to? No way. Remember, we're in this boat together. Nobody's running anywhere. Like my pastor always says, once you are married, you lock yourselves in the room and throw the key away. So nobody's running anywhere. You were in this together. Okay. Ah, yes, exactly. She said, what was the first thing she said? Yes, maybe it can be returned, And what if he says, I'm not returning it to, no, this, so what do you do when he decides he doesn't want to return it? you know, but it's still, I think, still talking about it in a non-confrontational way is very, very important, and not making a big deal out of it. Because what I realize is that a lot of things in marriage or or relationships is like, don't sweat the small stuff. I know this is a big stuff. $30,000 is not small money, right? But still, don't make a big deal out of everything. Just for the sake of peace, don't make a big deal out of everything. But yeah, I agree with Pastor Yemi. Yes, try see if we can return it and get that money back, because I want the down payment of my house. I mean, after we bought the house, then we can buy an entertainment center, but we shouldn't put the cart before the horse, right? Okay, so let's go to the second vignette. It says your toddler is going towards the dinner table. The 3-year-old rushes past you before you can grab an arm and wastes water all over the dining table and the food. What do you do? Do you instantly tap their behind and hand and yell at them? Do you make eye contact and explain to them that is why you always tell them not to run? Reprimand your toddler in a calm tone and warn the child that next time they run recklessly, timeout will be the punishment. And then C says, put them on timeout, no questions asked. Or curse their daddy's village. Who wrote this? This is Tokumbo, not me. Curse their daddy's village, which, and like in our culture, if when we were growing up, when you do anything, for those of you who are not from Africa or from Nigeria specifically, when you do anything, they would say to you, oh, you're just acting like your father, or you're acting like your mother, or you're acting like your father's people, like people from your village. So that's where this came from. So do you, and we, when we were growing up, they used to make those comments a lot. And when we were also raising our kids, somebody would, when your kids say something to you, you would respond to them and say, you're not talking to me, you're talking to your father's people. Those kind of comments, our parents used to say that to us a lot, that no, you're talking to your father's family, not or not, you're not talking to me, things like that. And we do that a lot. So anyway, that's where that D came from. So just put your answers in the chat, and let's see what you think. So do you, okay. Hi, Abiba. Thank you for that comment. I haven't seen you in a long time. I hope you're well. Anyway, yes, there's a way that we talk to each other without, messing each other's character, right? So that was what she said, without, damaging each other's character or sending each other back home like we like to do. That's what we call it. You send the person back home. Like, no, you're not talking to me. You're talking to your family members. So there's remember I talked about respect. Respect is very, very important when when we're talking to each other. We need to show respect. We need to let our spouse know that we respect them, we value them. And also for those of us who are Christians, it's not a it's not a Christian-like thing to send somebody back home like with your words, basically. Thank you for that, Abiba. The third vignette, I don't know if anybody has any. Did anybody respond to the second one? Okay. So B, everybody, the consensus is B, I assume, even though timeout works too sometimes, especially for toddlers running around. You've been telling them, sit down, stop running around. You've told him how many times, and then he ends up spilling water all over the dinner table. I would do a timeout, right? But for those kids that we're raising in the diaspora, you have to make eye contact with them and talk to them and explain to them why, this is why I told you not to run. And it's a habit that we should cultivate, actually engaging our children in healthy conversations. Okay, thank you for that. First reaction as a Nigerian is to yell. Yes, definitely. We love to yell. We yell. Even when we're talking to one another, just we're sitting down all, we gisting, we call it gisting, and we're screaming at the top of our voices to one another. And my kids are like, Mom, but she's right next to you. Why are you yelling? And so it kind of, but that's our culture. That's how we were raised. We're very passionate, animated people. That's what I would say. But of course, the first reaction, is to yell and yell at the child. But is there a way that we can start thinking before we do that? Sometimes that yelling gives us, as parents, as mothers especially, high blood pressure when you're screaming and yelling. How much yelling and screaming can you do? Like I said, we need to be calming down, okay? Especially for those of us who are older now, that all that yelling and screaming, the kids, and they just walk away like, okay, when you're done, they already know what you're going to do. They already know you're going to scream. So why can't maybe, but now, for me personally, I have actually learned as my children have grown older now, and also when they're older, you have to respect them. You can't just be yelling at a grown man you're looking at him up, that is how many inches taller than you are. But I tend to kind of, talk to my children. I talk to them, I engage them, and with whatever it is that they have done wrong, respectfully. Okay, so that is how to build healthy families. And if, as your children have been growing up, you haven't been doing some of these things, there's always, room for change. There's always room for change. Change is very, very, change is healthy. So if you were doing some things wrong before, you can start doing them right. It's never too late to start, believe me. And even your adult children will appreciate it. They will respond better to you. They'll feel closer to you. They'll feel, because as they're growing up, they're going out into the world. They need that support system of you and your spouse to be able to come back home and tell you what they're going through. Because when they're out in the real world, believe me, like we know as adults, the real world can be vicious. So if you have not, engaged your children and raised them in a way where they're comfortable enough to come back home and say, hey, Mom, Dad, I'm going through this at work. What do you guys think I should do? And then he just keeps it to himself, So we want to be very mindful of how we're raising them. And even if we haven't been doing that right, then we can always, change. Very good. Thank you. So the third one, it says your sister needs to stay with you. I love this one. I love this one. It says your sister needs to stay with your family for 6 months as she transitions to your city. Okay, so you have a sister that's just got a green card from Nigeria and she's come to stay in America because that's usually the norm, right? You told her it was okay without discussing it with your husband. Upon her arrival, your husband is upset and refuses to allow her to stay. What should you do? In fact, I just want your responses now. Tokumbo, just give me responses. What are people saying before I even read all of this? Because this one happens so much, Somebody said, shout at your husband and remind him that the apartment is in your name and you pay the bills while he's obtaining his master's degree. Therefore, he doesn't have a say in your family affairs. So this is the woman telling the husband that I'm the one that pays the bills, so you can't tell me who stays in my house and who doesn't. And vice versa too. Sometimes the men would say that to their spouses, to their wives, and say, what do you mean? Why do I have to tell you that my mom is coming to stay? Hey, come on now. You already knew what was I saying the other day, Talks? You went to collect the visa. You got interview dates, you bought the tickets, you drove to the airport. You still didn't think that the person you're going to meet, that you should tell them that you're coming. Okay, continue. Okay, when you say another way, she says, from my experience, I'll find another way for my sibling. So when you say you find another way for your sibling, what does that mean? Another way, like for her to stay somewhere else, or you know, or you apologize and inform him it will not happen again. And like, yeah, like this person said, find a solution to your sister's living arrangement. So find alternative solution, especially if your husband is saying that she can't stay because you didn't tell him ahead of time. Or what do? You report to your pastors, the parents, and all the elders in the family. You say, this man, he doesn't want my sister to stay. Things like that. Or this one is funny. He says, I refuse him intimacy unless he allows your sister to stay. So that one is like, you're trying to blackmail the poor guy. Okay, so I want to hear your comments. Huh? It's very disrespectful to ignore your partner in decision making. Yeah. So like I said, somebody says that it is disrespectful, to ignore your partner in decision making in anything that involves your family, no matter how mundane it seems. And a whole human being coming to live in your house is not mundane at all. I think it's just a sign of respect that you would let your spouse know, and even your children, because I remember those days my kids be like, you didn't even tell us this person is coming. They just come and then you're not introducing us. Who is this person? When they were younger, and then they have to give up their bedroom for whoever this person is. I think respect, just having respect all across the board. You tell your spouse, you make sure they're okay with it. Talk to your children and let them know that they may have to make some adjustments. So it's just part of being having a functional and healthy family. And it can, like Habiba said, that it can actually be resolved amicably. Okay, thank you guys for that contribution. Mm-hmm. Okay, I mean, Habiba said something about the child running around and turning pouring the water, over across the food, and that knowing that you have a toddler, then you should know not to keep open containers of water around. But hey, I mean, I don't know what you guys think about that. Still, the child should not be running around the house. That's my opinion. I guess I'm of that school of thought that children should be disciplined. But really, I think she has a point there. Just like we child-proof our houses, so we should be mindful when you have a toddler, not leave things that could easily be spilled, lying around. That actually makes sense. Okay. So are we still on this sister staying in your house matter? Because I want to hear this. Okay, Miss Abby, thank you so much, Miss Abby, for your contribution. Miss Abby said that the children fear us, but they do not respect us. And that happens when we yell a lot at them or we are abusive towards them. They fear. So what we're doing is we're instilling fear, and that fear is supposed to bring about submission. So when you are instilling fear in someone just to bring about submission, they will not respect you. Not only will they not respect you, they don't even like you. They grow up to resent you. How many people have grown up resenting their parents? When with all that, you remember the way they used to beat us back in the day. Oh my goodness. When our parents beat us back in the day, you find yourself thinking, is this woman really my mother, or was I adopted? So when a child is thinking, these people, this woman, maybe she's just a stepmother, maybe she's not really maybe they adopted me, then you've really done, you've really gone, and the extra mile. So a lot of people grow up resenting their parents, not respecting them. You fear them because, of course, they have to feed you, they clothe you, they have to pay your school fees. You depend on them for a lot of things. That is why a lot of children, they comply. But then you just realize when they grow up, the moment they go to college, a lot of kids don't even come back home. They don't want to come back home. They don't want to go to the church that you go to. They just, they basically just move on with their lives. So that's a very valid comment, that they fear us, but they don't respect us, and mhm. So yeah, somebody said, beg your husband, apologize, so that's B, says apologize and inform him it will not happen again, and then make alternative arrangements, at least for the first maybe week or so that it's, because it does not even make sense. Daily Motion said, what kind of rubbish is that you bring somebody from all the way from Nigeria and not inform your husband? It's not only rubbish, it is very, very disrespectful. It's like you disregard that person. You don't even, you don't value them, and that's a big no. That's a huge sign of an unhealthy family. If that is even happening in your family, it means that there is some dysfunction already going on, that you can bring a whole human being without acknowledging the people that live in that house. That is very, very disrespectful. And somebody said you can rent an Airbnb for your sister and try to settle the matter, with your spouse. Yes. Let's go to the last one. You catch your teenager smoking marijuana. The teenager now informs you that marijuana has been legalized in your city and they are careful to buy from a dispensary. What should you do? So remember, marijuana now is like cigarette too, and is legalized. So all that screaming and yelling, that's the first thing they'll tell you, that it's legal now and they can get it from a dispensary. They can get it with a prescription. So all that dramatics of, oh my God, oh, this child has killed me. He's on drugs and all that. So what are your responses to that? Somebody said, I will have a heart attack if I realize. You remember when we were, a lot of us when we were younger, a lot of people tried cigarettes. Cigarettes was like the marijuana back in the day. And if you're smoking, it's like you're smoking your drugs and stuff like that. So marijuana is the modern day cigarettes. That's what I would just tell you, parents. You need to calm down. A lot of them have tried it. They may not admit it to you because they know you have a heart attack, right? And that's another thing that I have learned about freaking out. I call it freaking out. When you freak out a lot about everything they tell you, you shout and scream, you're throwing a huge tantrum, they'll start hiding things from you because they already know your reaction. So let's be careful. You have to use those moments as teaching moments. So yes, you find out that your child is smoking marijuana. What do? You use that opportunity to sit the child down and find out what is going on. Of course, peer pressure and all that. There may be some other deeper things going on when a child is, turning to drugs. You need to find out. It's not the time for you to, make negative comments, to curse them out, drive them out of the house, threaten them. Somebody said, I'll send them back to Africa or Caribbean. Let me shock you right now. In Africa and the Caribbean, I think the drug use is even worse than in the US and in the UK. So let me just shock you with that. So if you think you're sending them back, they will find it. People that use drugs, they know how to find it. Anywhere you put them, they know how to find it. So I'm just putting that out there for those of you who want to send them back to Africa. Give them lashes, curse them, disown them. It doesn't change. It doesn't change anything. That doesn't change anything. Miss Benedicta, thank you so much for that. It says, sit them down and explain the long-term effects. So we're back to talking, active listening, talking to your children, engaging them, letting them feel like they are valued, So mom is even, they think I'm important enough to sit me down and actually explain to me the dangers of drugs. And there are dangers of using, you know, these drugs, even the marijuana. Yes, they're getting it from a dispensary and all that stuff. You know, yeah, even they're getting it at a dispensary. Sometimes now the marijuana is being laced. So that's what the explanation I give to my kids when I talk to them about it. And then when I talk to, you know, the kids that I see in my practice, I talk to them about the dangers of what could happen when you go and buy it off of the streets. It's been laced with some chemical. Once you use it, it only takes once and it alters your whole brain chemistry. So you need to at least explain that to them. And when you say that to them, they understand, so that even if they want to use it, they can make a responsible decision. Like, okay, getting it at a dispensary. I don't believe any dispensary will be listing it with what do you call it, chemicals, but it's expensive in the dispensary. So they get it cheaper off the streets. So those are the talking points for you as a parent. It's not the yelling, it's not the screaming, disowning them, like whatever you do, all of that, you are just, you know, you're just dramatizing, you're just throwing a tantrum. You really need to dig deep and let the child know, give them resources, read about it together, show them the research, whatever it is you have to do. Talk to them. There is nothing, you know, communication does not solve. Ask them why they are using, why do they think they need it. Educate them about the dangers. That's what Miss Benedicta said, and outline boundaries and discipline accordingly. Also, you have to, you know, draw a balance. So drug use is not allowed in this family. That's not what we do. You need to let them know and draw that line for them that you cannot do this. And if you're going to do it, these are the things, these are, you know, these are the consequences, you know, as opposed to yelling and screaming and all that, because that really doesn't solve anything. All they'll do is they just learn better how to hide it from you, so that next time she doesn't find out, or he does, they don't find out and they don't start screaming, because they just, you know. So kids will do what they want to do. I remember when we were growing up, we know things that our parents don't want us to do. So we make sure that even when we do them, they don't catch us. That's the only thing. You just don't get caught. But we don't want our children to be in that situation where they cannot come to us to talk to us about anything, especially when we don't freak out. So it's very important that we don't, I call it freaking out, throwing a tantrum, that yelling, screaming, you know, disowning, all that, that is throwing a tantrum, an adult tantrum. And it's usually very counterproductive. So somebody just said the first reaction will be to, Madam Joy. Madam Joy said the first reaction will be to slap the marijuana out of their system. How do you slap? One thing that my sisters and I, she will say something about, if you slap him and his brain will be reset. That's the word that we use. That somebody slaps you and your brain, we know how, when in those days when our mother slap us and you sisters, and these days you slap them and their brain will be reset. But I mean, that's just a momentary reaction. It doesn't solve the problem, you know. But I know that it can be very disappointing when you find out your child that you have raised, that you think, I raise this child and together we do all of this, all that they're learning, and then they're using marijuana. Remember, I told you it's a recreational drug. It's the cigarettes of this generation. So a lot of kids try it. Okay, so somebody said that it's only legal, marijuana is only legal within the state, not by federal law. So we also have to be careful, you know. You also want to talk to your children about the dangers of, you know, getting in trouble for being in possession of some of these drugs. And you know how it is with especially our young Black men. You know, they're treated differently. They're not treated with the same, you know. So if I've heard about men that they found marijuana in their cars and they were giving like almost a life sentence. And some other person will get the same, they'll find it on them, and the policeman will probably just turn a blind eye. So we also have to have that in mind and have those conversations with our children about, you know, the dangers of not being treated fairly when it comes to the law in this, situations, and you don't want to make yourself a sitting duck where somebody now has something over you and they will say, well, but he was using drugs. Or so it's important that we talk to our children. I think that's what I'm trying to say. It's important that we explain those things. Those are the talking points we should be having, as opposed to be yelling and screaming at them. So yeah, Miss Abby said that the use of cannabis in Nigeria, any kind of drug, it is growing very, very fast. So sending them back to, I said, sending them back to Africa or the Caribbean is not going to work. In fact, you're just sending them into the heart of the jungle right there, or the matter, not jungle, but the heart of the matter. They, God forbid, they come back, even worse. So like I said, those who use it, they know where to find it, and anywhere you put that person, they will seek it out. Okay, so hopefully this quiz helped us to understand how to better deal with different family situations. So somebody said it's important to get, yes. So if it's before it gets out of hand, it's very important that you get that child to an addiction counselor when you know for a fact that the child is not able to, do without drugs. And marijuana is a gateway drug. Let me say that to you. It's a gateway drug. And what that means is that, so people try, so, they just try. That's the first thing they try. The first drug that is usually introduced to teenagers, middle schoolers, is a gateway drug. And so that kind of opens the way for them to want to try something stronger. So then it becomes LSD, then it becomes cocaine, then heroin. So it is a gateway drug. So it's very important that when you find out maybe your children are hooked on marijuana or any type of drug, find them an addiction counselor so that they can be they can get the help that they need as soon as possible before it gets out of hand. Thank you so much, Auntie Tammy. Thank you. So are you a functional member of your family, or do you have some dysfunctional behavior that you need to address? I believe that all of these conversations we've had today has kind of shed light on, us thinking about, is my family functional or dysfunctional? So you make that choice, think about it, and from all the things we've discussed, I believe that you should be able to understand ways that you can make amends and create a healthier family, a more functioning family, as opposed to, dysfunction within the family. None of us are perfect. Family relationships can be challenging. However, we should all, strive daily to love those close to us through our actions. One of the missions in my church is building stronger families. And family does not just have to be mom, dad, and children. It could be, just siblings staying together, even friends living together. It's very, very important that we love one another, we respect one another, and, stick by one another, even through hard times. And some of the tips there, so here are some tips to be a functioning member of your family. Pray always, especially how to be more loving and tolerant. Pray together. Love, Corinthians 13 says love is patient, love is kind. Show love, listen more, exercise self-control. Watch what you say and don't make it about you. I love that one. Watch what you say and don't. You know how our mothers in those days, any little that happens, oh, why did you do this to me? Oh my God, who did I offend? Mommy, it's not about you. So tell your mom, I'm telling you, moms out there, it's not about you. So don't make it about you. Stop yelling. Yelling doesn't solve anything. So I don't know if we have any question or answers. Please follow all the Dr. Tade Talks social media to continue the discussion and to view the resources we use for today's live. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate everyone. I'm excited to announce that I'll be having a live audience taping April 23rd. It's Sunday, April 23rd at our new Church, Jesus House, Goshen, for 5224 North Kedzie. So it's going to be on a Sunday. So join us for Sunday service, and then you can, also attend, be a part of the live taping of, that's going to be our first live taping. Also follow me for more details in the coming weeks. Remember, fear, shame, and anxiety are not who we are or who we are created to be. See you all next time, and God bless you. Thank you so much. I love you all.